Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Nerdy Multiverse and yet another breakdown. Today we will be breaking down and giving our initial thoughts on the 4th episode of the 4th season of The Boys. Finally back on track for these breakdowns. Unfortunately, there were tons of restrictions and stuff that just did not allow me to get to the 2nd or 3rd episode, but we are all good to continue on now. And the 4th episode of this season being titled Wisdom of the Ages. This episode begins at a Vought facility as Homelander arrives with a cake. This is a quote-unquote reunion. This is where he was raised inside of the locked away room as the doctors and such ran experiments and observed him. Now on the wall is some art of Homelander costume concepts. The first one is a sort of yellow and blue cape costume reminding me a bit of Sentry. Now none of these concept costumes have the American flag as a cape however, as this is something Homelander adapted himself, so that he could sway the population of America to relate to him and follow after him. Now, obviously, Homelander is not just here to have a reunion where he was raised and mistreated. He is here with malicious intent and basically for revenge. We then see Butcher as the worm sort of thing moves around under his skin, and he ends up fainting, still seeing those hallucinations of Becca. Then, Huey and his mother Daphne sit beside Huey's father as he still lies in the hospital bed after having a stroke. They are eventually informed by one of the doctors that he is most likely not going to make it, and they have practically labeled him as brain dead. So it may be best to pull the plugs and let him pass on. There are many ads being played on TV of upcoming events and showings from Vought. The first of which is an expo or sort of con with soup guests, such as Homelander, Firecracker, A-Train, and Sister Sage. But on the guest list is also Sam and Kate from the Gen V series, who we also know will be the only two characters from that series to appear in this season of The Boys. Adam Bork is also on the guest list, and he is the sort of director that oversees all of the shows and movies that Vought produces with the soups. The next ad is of A-Train's film with Will Ferrell training A-Train, as well as The Whole Truth with Tech Knight. Now Tech Knight also appeared in Gen V, and of course his powers allow him to have these meticulous deduction abilities. The news then shows reports coming up regarding the characters from Gen V, with Mary, Jordan, Emma, and Andre being featured. And of course, May Chance Perdomo, rest in peace. Starlight then meets with Robert Singer to show support for his anti-soup legislation bill. She has plans to rally her supporters together to press other elected officials to also push for the bill to be signed. But the meeting is ultimately cut short as Robert is mostly focused on finding a way to have Victoria Newman, the head popper, killed. While Frenchie is with Colin, they listen to some Ray Charles music as Colin reminisces over the memory of when his family was killed in front of him. He remembers one exact detail of the killer, and that is the markings on the shooter's leg. These markings would directly point to Frenchie being responsible if Colin ever ended up seeing them. Now at Starlight's HQ, her two top supporters inform her of what's going on across the street. Vought is setting up a stage and a show called The Truth Bomb with Firecracker. Sister Sage is behind this planning and is having this done, and they plan on exposing things about Starlight right in front of her own building and supporters. While Firecracker starts up what is meant to be a 6-hour-long presentation, Em and Butcher head over there to blackmail Firecracker and try to stop her from exposing things about Starlight. Meanwhile, back at the Vought facility with Homelander, he reminds Frank of what he used to do when he put John or Homelander into the furnace room. attempting to burn his skin and testing his invulnerability. He eventually makes Frank step into the oven himself, locking him inside and then burning him alive. Revenge for the pain that he put Homelander through all those years, as he says that it may not have burnt his skin, but he still stood in that room for hours in pain. Huey and Kimiko end up meeting with A-Train, as Huey needs A-Train to get him some Compound V. Not for him though, as it is for his father, and this is the only way to stop him from dying. Now at first, A-Train disagrees, as all of the vials are locked away in Homelander's room, but Huey says that he owes him for all of the bad things that have happened, and those are all because of A-Train, referring to that very first episode of the series when he killed Huey's girlfriend. So if this is done, they will be even, and this is where A-Train agrees to do it. But while this meeting took place, they were all being watched, and when A-Train leaves, Huey and Kimiko get attacked, and the people watching them are revealed to be a part of the Shining Light group, the same organization that took Kimiko and made her into a soldier and killer after injecting her with V, which they also do to hundreds of other kids as well. So Kimiko gets Huey ready to fight. If he wants to save his dad, he is going to have to fight. Butcher and M make their way through the backstage area of the Firecracker event, and before they find her, Butcher has a moment where he is clearly about to faint, and where he also has another hallucination of Becca. This all brings him to ask M for a favor: to get Ryan away from Homelander once he is gone, if he is not able to do that before then, as M is the best person that he knows. Firecracker then shows up and they confront her. Butcher plans to blackmail her with records of when she was arrested for being with a literal child. So she either has to call this all off, or this gets posted to the entire world. But this all backfires, as she just clicks post herself and then walks off, as she heads back on stage and quote-unquote confesses for her sins, bringing up this situation because she knows everyone is going to now see it across social media. After she immediately starts going after Starlight and exposes that when she was 13 and had her first save, she ended up blinding a mother who was meant to be saved there. Now, of course it was an accident and Starlight was still learning how to control her powers then, but it is very clearly personal. Butcher then sends Frenchie over to sneak into Firecracker's trailer, and in an attempt to find out what information they even have on Starlight, other than what they already have exposed. A-Train arrives in Homelander's room, and luckily this is the perfect time to go there, as Homelander is still at the Vought facility. A-Train ends up finding the hair that Homelander is collecting, which again could end up being used against him in some way, as it is technically his DNA. Now, while also searching for the Compound V files, he also finds an entire secret drawer of milk, of course. But once he finds the Compound V and takes a vial, Ashley catches him in the act, but they both have dirt on each other that could get them both killed, so they just decide to keep each other's secrets quiet. Now, back at the Vought facility, Homelander calls Marty over and recalls that he used to be one of the nice ones, most of the time. And then he reminds Marty of what he used to call Homelander and how it hurt his feelings. Marty apologizes and Homelander says it's fine, but then makes him do, well, something in front of everyone. But he can't, so Homelander ends up lasering him, which is when Barbara, the one who ran this entire operation here, shows up. So he puts Marty out of his misery and meets with Barbara in what he calls the bad room. Kimiko and Huey fight off their Shining Light attackers, and after Huey takes out his, he is left covered in his blood, possibly giving him flashbacks or a reminder to when A-Train killed his girlfriend, leaving him covered in blood. Kimiko fights a girl who also has powers, and they even have the same exact fighting style or stance. This is because they were both brought up in the same exact way to become a soup soldier for the Shining Light. These two even have history together themselves in the fighting pits. Meanwhile, Frenchie sneaks into Firecracker's trailer and finds the information they have on Starlight before getting caught and attacked by Ezekiel, the soup with stretchy powers like Mr. Fantastic. He was also an organizer of Capes of Christ. Frenchie gets thrown around by Ezekiel, leaving Butcher to have to intervene himself, which is where he nearly gets choked out and passes out. While Firecracker exposes Starlight's personal medical records, causing Starlight to absolutely snap, pull up on Firecracker and beat the absolute brakes off of her before M stops her in front of all of the cameras. Well, turns out Butcher was not actually choked out, he passed out as that worm-like thing under his skin rolled near his brain. And as he wakes up, he is covered in blood and guts. Whatever that thing is under his skin must have took over and killed Ezekiel. Butcher clearly has powers, and I think they may be somewhat like Venom's, a symbiote that takes over. Otherwise, it could be somewhat like Moon Knight, where his other personality takes over. Finally, back at the Vought facility and inside of what Homelander calls the Bad Room, Barbara recalls Homelander's childhood, morally the day that he was born and how he killed nurses and doctors that day. And ever since then, people have been nothing but afraid of him. But with all of that, he is afraid of disappointment. And he is so keen on being loved to the point that it is human-like. After Frenchie wakes up from his injuries, he pushes Colin away and reveals to him that he is responsible for killing his family. So Colin says that if he ever comes near him again, he will kill him. The theories and speculation that everybody have do seem to come true about Sister Sage, as it is revealed that she does in fact give herself lobotomies to take a break from being the most intelligent person on the planet. Robert Singer and Victoria Newman condemn Starlight's actions and end up cutting ties with her, as Huey heads into the alleyway and meets with A-Train and gets the Compound V, forgiving A-Train for everything. But Butcher was hiding and watching everything in the alleyway and tells him that the Compound V is a bad idea, and then reveals that he gave himself some 4 months ago, but says that he does not have any powers, although that seems to be false after what happened earlier. Huey arrives at the hospital and at the last minute decides to not give his father the Compound V, leaving it in his jacket and leaving the room. I believe when he left the room, his mother went in his jacket and injected it herself, as when Huey comes back, the V pumps into his father's veins and he wakes back up. Barbara, now locked away in the bad room with all of the staff members that Homelander has now killed, as he stands in the elevator covered in their blood as he smiles. Reminiscent of the shot after he killed all of those Vought soldiers, and this is where the episode ends off. And overall, another great episode and a great showing of just how terrifying Homelander is. Definitely going to end up being a top tier villain when this series ends off. As usual, everything is very enjoyable about this series and I never have anything negative to say. The action in this episode was really good and I like how we are really picking things up. I cannot wait for next week's episode. But yeah, that about does it for this episode, from me at least. But of course, I would like to hear your thoughts on the episode as well, so leave them down below. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed our breakdown and review on this episode, don't forget to give it a like, and with that being said, we will see you all the next time that we go through and explore the nerdy multiverse.